Hi, I'm Steve Walker and I'm Director of Children and Families for Leeds City Council. I was involved as one of the reference group and working party that developed the guide as a representative of the Association of Directors for Children's Services, but also because in Leeds we've placed a particular emphasis, as indeed of many local authorities, in making sure that we're involving families and that we take an approach which we would call relational practice, where we work with families rather than do things for them or to them. And I think that the guide is an excellent example of how you would take this forward in practice in what is a very complex and stressful area. Families are one of the most underutilised resources that we actually have in this country. Despite the fact that the Children Act 1989 is really clear that the fundamental principle is we should be supporting children to remain within their families wherever possible, and that the research is clear that where we can safely and appropriately keep children within their birth family, and by that I mean either with birth parents or within the extended family and kinship network, the outcomes are better. So therefore, getting viability assessments, or as we would prefer to call them in the guidance, initial family and friends assessments right is absolutely critical. The reason that the guide was developed was because although this is a really complex area and very often social workers are being asked to complete assessments within a really tight timescale, there was no guidance. So the idea was to develop some guidance that actually would assist social workers when having to undertake an initial family and friends assessment. So if you think about the context in which you'll be doing an initial family and friends assessment, there has been a realisation or a concern that a child cannot remain with their birth parent or parents. In a situation where we're considering the need to remove a child from the birth families and we're involved in court proceedings, one of the key challenges is identifying those members of the child's extended family who might come forward to be considered for an initial family and friends assessment. The way that we have dealt with that in Leeds, as indeed many authorities have, is to use family group conferencing as a way of getting the family together, to understand the issues and to come up with a plan which is developed and owned by the family to deal with the situation. It's important, I think, to say family group conferencing are not an informal meeting. It is a process whereby we have a family group conference coordinator who will help to identify family members who could be considered. We'll contact those family members, we'll facilitate them coming to the meeting because some of them may be coming from other parts of the country. We'll bring them together, explain the process, and then meet with the social worker to discuss the nature of the problem. At the end of that process, what we found is the family will decide those family members that they think would be most suitable to care for the child, and therefore that initial bit of, goodness me, we've now got a family network of 14, 15, 16 people. Are we doing a initial family and friends assessment of all of them? Actually, if the family can work together and just agree 4 or 5 people, that means that we're only going to be doing assessments on that number. And a very useful way because it keeps the family involved and to some extent in control of the process, because it is the family who decide the members that they would like to put forward. But even where we do that work and through the family group conference identify family members who we think could be, and I think it's important to say about that initial assessment, it's only could be a long-term option for the child, we need to complete those assessments very quickly. The family themselves may not have been aware of long-standing problems, or that those problems had got to the extent where it's not going to be possible to keep the child within the family. So they are going to be trying to cope with that, as well as thinking, what does it mean for me to put myself forward as a long-term carer? What the guidance does is provide a framework for practitioners to help families to work through those issues, because we need to do that quickly because of not simply court timescales, but to avoid delay for children and young people. But we need to make sure that families are given the right information, that they understand the needs of the child, they understand exactly the commitment they will be given, and that they understand the support that is available. As part of that, we need to assess and have an idea of what support they might need. At the end of the initial assessment, what we are doing is making a recommendation to the court that this family member or these family members should go forward for further assessment. So it's not the end of the process, but it's a very important beginning. So we would be urging practitioners to use this guidance. It's not compulsory, and it would not be something that we would be advocating using in a dogmatic way, but it is a framework that will actually make sure that if you use it in the right way, that we're engaging with families early and we're involving them properly in the process. And that helps everybody. It helps the family by making sure they're involved and can make a considered decision. It helps the child because we're doing that in a way that when we get the matter into court, the court has enough information to make a decision as to whether or not they want to proceed with further assessment. If we don't do that, what you get is a situation where the court asks for the assessment to be redone, and therefore that results in more stress for the family, more delay for the child or young person, and actually, if we're being honest, more stress for social workers and team managers within the organisation. So we hope that this guidance will be helpful. We would really urge you to use it because we do need to support families through what is a very complex and difficult process. And we think the guidance will help you to do that.